to another episode of The Independent Mindset, the podcast for candid conversations, staying curious, and being better. If you guys ever feel like doing us a favor, feel free to leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you especially liked a certain episode or topic, let us know on Instagram or share it with your friends who you know might enjoy the topic as well. I know both Jason and I would really appreciate that. Now, for today's episode, we had the pleasure of chatting with Fariborz Behzadi, owner and master brewer of Bicycle Craft Brewery in Ottawa. Along with his wife and business partner, Laura, they left their jobs in government and IT to open their very own brewery in 2014. During this episode, over a few beers, of course, we discussed starting a microbrewery full-time, cardboard shortages, brewing trends, and of course, beer. Hope you find this one refreshing. Fariborz, thank you very much for joining us here on The Independent Mindset. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of entrepreneurship and then the fun part, beer, can you tell us a bit about your journey into kind of where you're from and how you decided and why you decided to start Bicycle Craft Brewery?
Sounds good. Well, thanks for having me. It's good to be here with you guys. Well, the story is I myself and my wife, we moved to Ottawa in 2009 from Toronto, and basically I was working in IT. My background is mechanical engineering, and I'm originally from Iran, and but Laura, who's my wife and partner at the brewery, she got a job in Ottawa with the federal government. So we moved to Ottawa, and because my job was IT, I could work remotely. So there was no problem for me moving. We started brewing in our backyard, basically for fun. And at first, it all started with a beer kit you would buy from one of those brew your own or brew on premises locations. And it just got serious because after a couple of those, we decided to do the all grain brewing, which is basically buying your malted barley and malted wheat and other grain and crush it and just mash in and start the whole process. And the first time we did it, the smell of the mash was intoxicating and just amazing. And it just took off from there. We decided to look into it more seriously after a few years. And, 2012, we sat down and had our plans. Basically wrote everything down, what we want to do, how we can do it, and what is required for opening a business and a brewery. And then but basically jumped right in it. 2014 is when we opened our brewery, September. And it's the day we opened our brewery, we basically, I quit my job right away, and then shortly after Laura, and we were 100% dedicated to the brewery.
I was going to ask, when you decide to kind of go full in something like a brewery, because I assume we'll get into the cost a bit later, but did both of you plan right away to, you're like, we're probably both going to have to quit our job and put at least, 100% of our time in there?
It was something that we thought about. Maybe we could just keep our jobs and do the brewery on the side, not knowing exactly how much work and dedication requires when you start a business. It goes for any business, not necessarily brewery, but there's a lot of labor involved with the brewing as well. And especially if you're just the two of us, when we started, we didn't have any staff, so we were doing everything ourselves. So that, when we started building the brewery and preparing it for the launch, we realized there's no way that we can have a job, a day job in the brewery at the same time. So that was, at that point, it was pretty clear that we have to quit our jobs. And so that's what we did.
And is there a specific reason why it's called Bicycle? And then I'll let Jason ask.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when we moved to Ottawa, we realized a difference in the bike friendly roads between Ottawa and Toronto. and we fell in love with the bike paths in Ottawa, basically. And just like what's one of our fun things to do every day was to get on our bikes and ride to different places. Just want to go to a farmer's market, or go to Blues Fest or movie theater, and later on the Lansdowne Park and all those places that just, you get on a bike, you can pretty much get from anywhere to these destinations. And it was a lot of fun for us to do that. And we loved biking, cycling in town, urban cycling, I should call. Laura is more of a serious cyclist than I am, but I enjoyed her riding the bike. And, and then we decided, one of the these days we were talking, I said, well, what's the best thing you want to do after riding a, long bike ride, after making a good sweat and all that. And, we both agreed that drinking a cold beer was the best thing to do after. So,
I would agree with that. Yeah. I ask because I'm a big cyclist. Used to be even more serious back in the day, but yeah. So good name.
Right on. Yeah.
I approve.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah.
I was about to say, I think you just made a friend there, Fariborz, because William, he likes his beer, he likes his biking.
Oh, no, nothing wrong with that. We like that too. Awesome.
Cheers.
Cheers to you.
Hey, I gotta say, I'm pretty fascinated that you decided right at day one to quit the day job and dive headfirst. Because if you have I'm assuming you're a numbers guy. Like if you're a mechanical engineer by trade, IT guy by trade, I'm thinking that you must have had every spreadsheet in the world out there, and the numbers just must have landed. You're like, yep, this makes sense. And then, but like, take me through that leap of faith from the numbers make sense on paper to actually taking the plunge.
Sure. So, you're right. We had written down our plan and, projection of a 5-year plan, and the detail of, like, we even had a detail on every month how much beer we're going to produce. But, the reality is we weren't doing it at the time I was doing all these calculations. And, you will only really realize the potential of the market and the reality of the market while you're in the market, while you're looking to sell your product, that you have a physical product or tangible product. And before that, it's all just assumptions. And we made all the assumptions, and based on all those, and I was very conservative in my calculations for basically the amount of profit per liter of beer, or like how much cost there is. So I just bumped up the costs and lowered the sales and revenue as much as possible, just being conservative, but at the same time not too didn't want to scare ourselves too much. You got to be a little bit realistic as well. And so it all made sense that it's something we could do. And that sealed the deal for us. And we said, we got to do it. And we already spent, at the time we decided to quit our job, we've already spent basically all the money we had, plus borrowing some money from the bank. And so then, there's basically one way to go.
So you burnt like the old Greeks, you burnt the ships on the beach, and you said we can only go forward from here.
That's right. Yeah, that's what we did. Yeah.
So what was the market back then in 2014?
Well, in 2014, when we started thinking about it, it was basically 2012, around that time. And so at the time there was, some new breweries were opening up, microbreweries in Ontario particularly, but we were also looking at the states, other provinces as well, like British Columbia, Quebec. We're just a little bit ahead of Ontario in the number of microbreweries. United States is obviously, like, it was booming for the long time. So we were thinking that the direction of that the market is going and the consumer trend seems favorable to microbreweries. And at the time, I think maybe in Ontario or maybe Canada in a whole, 5% of the market share was for microbreweries, and the rest of it was the macros and the big brewers. So we thought, it seemed like there's a lot of share that can be removed from the bigger part of the pie and added to the smaller part, which was the microbrewery. And people were all the foodie movement, local movement, all that also contributed to boost their confidence. So that's why we decided to do it.
And there's a specific number that makes it a microbrewery, right? What is that liter output?
So in Canada, if I remember correctly, it's about 500,000 liters per year production. Below that is considered a microbrewery, and
Okay.
anything above that, yeah.
And is there such a thing as nanobreweries? I've heard that term thrown out as well.
So that's basically microbreweries that are very small. They're called nanobreweries, yeah.
Right.
But I don't know if there's I don't believe there's a definition for it. But,
right,
yeah.
like a legal definition. Yeah. The thing I always heard with opening a brewery is there's some very harsh overhead costs, especially based off of the equipment you have to buy because you have to start making beer right away. That's how you make your money. Was that did that prove to be true? Was that kind of like by far the biggest expense when starting a brewery?
Definitely, the biggest expense is the equipment. For the brew house is very expensive. All the cellar tanks, all the equipment. At the time, we bought all our kegs and all that. There are now, these days there are a lot of keg share or keg rental programs available. Maybe they were available back in the day, but I wasn't aware of them. The cost of equipment is the biggest expense. Basically, to start up a brewery, I would say, and then after that, the overhead is obviously always high because of the rent, because of the labor, and the ingredients are not as big of a cost as one would think. It's mostly the other things that are adding to the costs.
So I hear you're also the master brewer. Is that correct?
So I designed most of the beers. Laura's done a couple of those beers as well.
Okay.
More than a couple, but she's done a bunch of those beers. And but I designed most of them, and basically we formulate the recipe, and I used to make them all the time myself, or Laura, but now we have couple of good brewers that work for us, and they basically execute the recipes perfectly. So,
right. I gotta ask. I was going through your website earlier. I might be mispronouncing this one, but ethereal ghost. How do you say that one?
Ghost.
So it's I think the Germans call it Goza. That's how they say it, and it's a style of beer that is basically has some salt and coriander in it, so it doesn't follow the German purity law, but it's one of the exceptions so they created an exception for this one, so it's a style of beer, lighter usually, and some coriander seeds, some salt involved in it, and we've done mostly the gozas we make. They're fruited, so we add some fruit. So this one has the blackcurrant puree added to it, and it looks great. It's like we just released it actually today.
I actually, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I knew because I have my ins with your brewery, and I'm actually getting some tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
I'm a huge fan of Goza. Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to, we'll give it a positive review on Instagram.
Oh, sounds good to me.
Well, send one my way, because when I saw that earlier, I remember when I was a little guy, whenever I had a cold, my grandmother would always make me a tea using blackcurrant jelly. And just basically hot water with a blackcurrant jelly. I'm like, if that's an adult version of that, I want me some of this stuff. That's some good old down home memories, and just crank that dial up there a little bit. How do you go about figuring out these recipes? Trial and error, forums? Where do you go to get that?
Yeah, and what's your inspiration?
So when we started, and then we were home brewing, so I had a little system. We used to brew 20 liters a batch. So we started, we would experiment with different ingredients, different recipes, and see how it turns out in a 20-liter system. And then we would go ahead and implement it in our brew house. Our brew house is is not a huge brew house. The brew house capacity is 5 barrels actually. Um, but we double batch every day, so we do 2 5 barrels. So we produce 10 barrels and put them in one fermenter, and then the next day it goes to the next. And we have bigger fermenters that are 20 barrels, so we do 2 days of brewing to fill one of those. Just to give you a scale, but basically I would create a 20-liter beer, and then we would scale it up to the 500, about 500 liter of the brew house. But that was at the beginning. Then we found that there's no time to do the 20-liter anymore, so we would just create the recipe and do it right on the 500 liter. And
Gotta be sure.
yeah, you kind of like get a feel for your brew house and how it works. Obviously the numbers should work. We try to calibrate it as much as possible after doing easily, I would say, a few hundred batches. Then you kind of know how the brew house is turning up things.
So a little bit of art, a little bit of science in there.
That's true. Yeah, you got to trust your brew house a little bit too.
And are there any, like, because there's so many different types of beer now, which is something that I love and amazes me. But do you kind of go with, are there beers, do you make certain beers at a certain time of year because they sell better then? Do you make beers at a certain time of year because you have the seasonal ingredients? How does that work typically? How do you decide what flavor or what kind of beer to make?
So that's a good question. There is some of that for sure. There's, for instance, just a very obvious example is the stout. Stouts are, for the most part, consumers drink them in the colder weather. It's the belief, but I think you can drink a stout anytime, any day. But a lot of people, majority of people who we rely on purchasing the beer, they decide the stouts, for instance, are mostly for winter or in the fall. So we definitely have stouts at that time of the year. But when we get to the warmer months of the year, we do something like Goza. That's a lighter beer, very refreshing. Some salt in there, some different fruit, and to make it easier and refreshing for the warmer month of the year. Although right now it's not too warm, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
And
it's
then
been a pretty crappy couple of days.
I hear you. And then there is some obviously the ingredients. So we have a jalapeno beer we make, and that one is made with it's a jalapeno pale ale. So we put some jalapeno in the mash, some in the boil, and it imparts an amazing flavor of jalapeno. And then we try to do it when the jalapeno is in the season. And same with the other things, like we make some different milkshake products. Sometimes we use the puree that is not seasonal, but sometimes we get it. Try to get the puree seasonally and to make sense of it. Yeah.
How do you go about sourcing your ingredients?
Well, there are so many suppliers out there for ingredients, be it the base malt, the specialty malt. There's a lot of them in the market, and there are some suppliers that aggregate some of these different brands, and you can go to one of them and get a bunch of different of your ingredients through them. And we, for the malt, for instance, we have one supplier, but for hops, I use 2 or 3 different suppliers, and some local hop producers we buy from them when it's in season. When the hop product is out, we get fresh from them. And some same goes with the fruit. There are some suppliers that provide fruit puree. There is sometimes we get the fruit fresh from the market and make a puree or add it to the beer.
So you can get a lot. It's kind of neat. You can get a lot local, right? Because that goes a lot to what you're saying there, like your initial philosophy of that 5% market share that's growing a lot of source, a lot of local, a lot of buy local, sell local. That group of people that you saw growing, to me that's brilliant. What I've been wondering since the start is, how do you capture those people? Like, how do you get the word out? How do you get that fickle 500 to to do the work for you?
Well, that's a that's a really good question, and that's what everybody's trying to do is like it's beat the using the social media is obviously the biggest help, I would say, and because that it's it doesn't cost much. If you just post about your product, uh, to get people engaged, to let them know about what you're doing, and then interact with them. That's a great platform. All the social media that provides is basically a platform for you to have a conversation with the potential fans or people who like your products already and follow you. And by the way, those are the most important way of promoting you, because they talk about your product to their friends, their family, and if that definitely creates a solid following. And but other ways is like we used to do different things. Like we did an event called Bicycles Beer Garden, and that's all pre-COVID, obviously. But we would yeah,
Yeah.
we would throw in an event out in the open, usually in a park, in an area that is people could ride their bike. We would provide um, valet bicycle, complimentary valet bicycle parking, and serve beer. And we would have some guest taps, and obviously some food, some live music, and that's the stuff that engage with people that way as well in the community. And we also try to do some uh, give back a little bit to the community as much as we can. We have some, for instance, our right now we have some neighborhood boxes that we put together, some stuff from local uh, restaurants, local businesses in Ottawa, and or sometimes in other parts of Ontario. But we put together a box, and we sell that box, and once a portion of the proceed will go to a charity or a nonprofit organization every month. And we try to engage all different ways with customers and businesses around us.
And sidebar here, but how has COVID affected your guys' sales?
Um, well, at the initial, we had a good number of customers would come to our tap room and drink beer in a tap room, which
Right.
it was, it's obviously
Guilty.
yeah. So it was obviously one of the biggest margins for a business is when a customer comes to you. And so we lost that after COVID, and then bars and restaurant businesses almost entirely disappeared for a little bit, and then they came back, and with the lockdowns, they're reduced by quite a bit. But um, we started offering local home delivery and curbside pickup, obviously, and people just supported us. Amazing! It's amazing what communities do to support each other, and they buy our beer and we deliver it to them or curbside, and we feel very grateful and fortunate to be able to do that and to be able to operate at full capacity. We have hired a couple of more people even after that, so business is not too bad in that sense.
That's great. And do you deliver it by bicycle?
That's something we always dream of. We always talk about that. Now it would be fun to deliver something on a bicycle. We never
Right.
did it, but
You have just the radius of your,
yeah, for sure.
you know.
Yeah, it would be fun. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
must be going well. I was poking through your website earlier, and I see you have a recent job posting for a retail and delivery associate. So is there are you seeing good adoption? I know you said you saw a good amount of your customer base, but is it growing that volume of at home deliveries?
Well, the at-home deliveries have been amazing since the beginning of the pandemic. But yes, it is obviously we're entering the warmer months of the year, and so the volume's going up week by week. So we need to make sure that we can deliver the service. We try to deliver all the orders within the next day usually, but sometimes it gets a little bit busier, so we go in 48 hours we deliver. But yeah, we try to keep up with the pace, basically.
What is before we get into because we're going to get more into some fun beer stuff too, because I have some questions to ask you. But
Sure.
before that, what would you consider to be the best or most fun part of owning a brewery, and then the worst aspect of owning a brewery?
You know, I everything is fun at the brewery. I should tell you that the best part, I think, other than making the beer, which is, you could make it at home too, if you want. But I think the best part is interacting with customers and seeing them enjoying your product and talk about it. And it's definitely the best part for me. But aside from brewing, which was a lot of fun, I still enjoy brewing, and when I get a chance, I do it for sure, every once a week or so. But I don't know if there's I don't know. I should say the worst part is like anything for any business, running a business, basically, thinking about hiccups that happen, when there's a shortage of something. You have to make sure that you foresee and what your use of the material, product, and goods and ingredients are. But at the same time, the hiccups always happen. As an example, like when the COVID starts, like there was a bit of a shortage of there was a bit of right now there's a shortage of cardboard, for instance, for trays and flats. So that stuff happens, and that's probably the worst part of it for me. Yeah. Otherwise, all good.
Yeah, it was the most trivial things that decided to disappear right at the cusp of COVID. But I guess cardboard is related to toilet paper, so there you go.
Well, I guess cardboard, to be honest, like it is a lot of online purchases. Like you buy something from anywhere, it's going to be in a box to be shipped to you. So that's definitely why it's short right now. But we'll get there. We'll get through this too.
I was talking with some guys at work, and they were saying, like, how your cardboard, you have 2 layers, and in the inside you have the wavy bit.
Yeah.
Well, they were saying it's that in between, the corrugated medium, that was lacking. Like, of all the things in your daily life, how often do you think about corrugated medium? But there you go. There's your supply chain problem right there.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so there you go. There's so many things that are, they don't look too important on a day-to-day basis, but yeah, it could affect some businesses for sure.
So, Jason, should we get into beer?
Hey man, this one's all you. I feel the itching to ask some beer questions. Go right ahead.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, what is your favorite beer? You can give me a few options, but a few go-tos for you.
Yeah, I generally like IPAs, and I love. One of the first beers we made was Velocipede IPA, and that's still, I really enjoy drinking it. It pairs well with all kinds of food. It's a West Coast style IPA, so you get some pine and some citrus. Very refreshing beer, in my opinion. And yeah, I like IPAs generally. So that's one of my favorites, and I really like the New England style IPAs as well. That you get a lot of fruity flavors from the hops. I mean, not necessarily fruity, but it could be fruity, piney, citrusy, depends on what you use in the beer. And I like that style as well quite a bit. But then, generally I like majority of styles of beer, and I enjoy drinking them. And we share beers with our fellow brewers around in Ottawa as well. Right. So get to drink all kinds of beer for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm a IPA as well. I love most beers like you, but IPA is if I had to choose, it's my go-to. I like everything from the smell to the taste to honestly, the buzz that an IPA gives you. I find is just all superior to most beers.
I don't blame you.
And and especially the New England IPAs I love. But I figured if I was going to put some money on what your favorite beer was, I would have said IPA, because it seems to be dominating your guys' taps. Is what you produce.
That's true. We do a lot of IPAs for sure. Yeah, it's our favorite. Our staff like it too, and it looks like our customers too.
And the Velocipede is essentially your house brand at this point, eh?
That it is, yeah. So the first week we launched, the first day we opened with 4 beers, Velocipede was one of them, and just immediately it was known that that's our best selling beer, and it stuck. Yeah.
Call me crazy here. I've noticed, and I could be way off base here, that men tend to like IPAs more, and women tend to go for like white beers.
The Belgian stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Belgian stuff.
Well, to be honest, I don't know. It may have been at some point, but we get all kind of different customers for the IPAs. We make IPAs majority of the time, so and you get men and women equally. They enjoy it. I mean, I've never really counted them, but obviously the majority of our customers are men for sure for beer, but we get a lot of female customers as well, and they all love IPAs too. Seems like it.
I have noticed that throughout the years, because I've been following kind of the craft beer explosion fairly closely for the past decade at least, and I have noticed that before those kind of existed, you still had your major breweries like the Budweisers and the Molsons and the Labatts, but that seemed to be a lot more of a man product. But since microbreweries have exploded, it seems like there's a lot. First of all, there's a lot more variety to the beers and the products. Therefore, it seems to have attracted a lot more women as well. I believe you when you say it's still, male dominated. We love our beer, but I have seen a lot more interest from women.
Absolutely, it's just when you look in our tap room when we were open, we could serve beer to walking customers. You would see men and women right there. Maybe sometimes half and half, sometimes more men, sometimes more women. But I really don't have a real numbers on that. But we have both men and women that like our beers, and it looks like it is the case with all the local products, all the other microbreweries as well. Women like their beer as well as men do.
So a slight technical question here, but once upon a time, I also made a few batches of beer.
Nice.
Probably nowhere near the quality you guys started out making. I never got to the laborious kind of making, crushing your own grain. I was more at the concentrated part, where
Sounds
you buy
good.
your concentrate and you make it from there.
Yeah.
So I made a few bad IPAs once upon a time, but when you start making beer, it seems like a lot of people, or even the microbreweries, you always tend towards making ales and types of ales or things related to ales. Whereas for decades and generations, it seems like the main beer that was sold was always a lager. But then I learned later that a lager takes actually more time to make. So why is it that the microbreweries are now making ales and lagers are way less popular, even though for years we thought it was kind of like your go-to basic beer, but it takes longer to make?
So it's a I don't have the statistics on that to be fair, but I can imagine why. One of the reasons you just said, ales take half the time to make than a lager. So that's from the economic perspective. It's fast. You can turn around product faster when you make ale. Also, ales in ales you can get a lot more flavor. So you can become creative in. Lager making is definitely harder than ale in terms of technicality. Any flaw can show itself easily in the beer. Also, takes longer time to make. And you can't do crazy things you do with the ale, like the IPA. You throw as much as hop you want, mix it up. Throw some fruit. Of course, there's some lagers these days that they're dry hopped or like they added fruit added to it, which are great innovations. They're all fun to do. But I feel the biggest and the reason why everybody does ale mostly is the time. And for the ale, you don't have to do the temperature control that you do for the lager. Lagers ferment at a lower temperature, so it's like cost wise, it's easier to do ale for sure.
So I'm always curious then why the Budweisers of the world always, they made lagers forever and never touched ales, or, the majority of their beer was lager.
And Pilsners too, eh?
Yeah, for sure.
Pilsner once in a while, yeah.
Yes, I gotta tell you guys, like I really enjoy a well-made Pilsner or lager right now. If I get my hand on it, I'll really enjoy it for sure. But what I'm saying is, the reason that those guys were making that kind of beer was mostly because they're considered inoffensive. So it's not a flavor that would
Right.
get you into a discussion with somebody. I don't like the bitterness of it, or I don't like the flavor of citrus flavor in this. I don't like the pine in this, or like it's too much vanilla in it. There's not many different flavor components compared to an ale that would get people to pick and choose. So it's easier for the mass production. You'd go for something that is appealing to almost everybody. Almost basically try to remove all the flavor from it and make it easy for everybody to drink.
So
Yeah, it's safer.
What kicked all this off? Because I remember starting university, the craft brew section was almost negligible at the liquor store, and now it's half of the cold room, if not more. Like,
I think there's a variety of things. One of them is obviously the consumers became more knowledgeable about different flavors of beer in the world. It maybe, for instance, in Canada and the States, majority of beers were lagers, or like those inoffensive lagers. But in Europe, there are so many places that made amazing beers. In like Belgium, so much flavor in the beers. Or like
the Trappist stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And Germany have some amazing beers other than their lagers that they're known for. Same with England, for instance. So that's something that was there, maybe not very big, but very localized. And then when a lot of home brewing started happening in North America, a lot of books came out about home brewing. A lot of credit goes to the home brewers because they started experimenting with different things. Say, wow, look at this beer I made. It tastes so much better than what I can buy outside, and way cheaper. So you become creative, and then that just word get out, and people start making it their business. It's just like an evolution of something that people like and experiment, and then make it into a business, and just it explodes from there. I think
it's kind of nice to see too, because it's almost like where everything's getting so corporatized these days. You've seen in the last decade or more that instead of letting the couple large beer corporations, dominate everything, there's a lot more of this push towards the local and the micro, right, and the small business owner. Definitely. Although some microbreweries are owned by the larger breweries, I'm aware, but
sure.
it's still a nice kind of movement to see.
For sure, yeah. And it's definitely helping when it's basically consumers' awareness and demand shapes the market. Always.
Right.
Yeah.
I also like what you said about inoffensive. So I guess I'm an offensive beer drinker. I like the most offensive of beers.
I kind of chuckled there too. I was like, that's my new term. That's the word I learned today, was inoffensive beers. Inoffensive lagers.
What's your favorite kind? The offensive one. IPAs.
Offensive IPA is a good name for a beer.
Yeah, it would be actually. Make it the triples are making a big rise right now, so I'm into the triple IPAs.
Sounds
10%. Always more. He's just a real IPA junkie. He is.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Hey, I gotta say that makes complete sense to me, because I remember like back in the day going to the liquor stores as a young university student with like $5 in my pocket, and it was all German and all British beers, and it was a lot, like you said, like the Trappist and like stuff I had no idea what it was or how to pronounce. Was like, well, it's not Budweiser, so let's give this a go.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, you wanted to experiment something new, so there you go. And then if you like it, then you're hooked, basically.
Yeah, I had some great beers in Europe. I spent 3 months there, and especially the beer remarkable in Belgium, especially.
Oh yeah.
Sure. Did you ever do like any, like William just mentioned travel? Did you ever travel abroad to learn from the old masters in the old countries or anything like that?
I've traveled good number of places for sure, and we always even before COVID started, when Laura and I would travel, we'd definitely try to hit the very local places, very local markets, for not just for beer, for anything. But I have never picked anybody's brain, and the local microbreweries. I've talked to them, but not really getting into the details of it. At the end of the day, I realized, we were just visiting there, consuming their product, and if I get a chance to talk to a brewmaster, maybe I would. But most of the time, you don't get to talk to the guy who makes the beer, and it's usually talk to somebody who's serving you the beer. So still a great conversation, but never got to get the details of how things are made some places, for sure.
So no pilgrimage to a monastery in the depths of the
Yeah.
mountains of Belgium to
Check out
meet
the
like the
monks.
old guy with the gray beard and the gray hair who's been there for 300 years, the gatekeeper.
You know what?
The only guy with the recipe.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't done that, but it sounds like a lot of fun. And I've heard of people who've done that, and that's great. Good for them that they could do it. And I definitely would love to have a discussion with some like the guy like that who has the only person who has memorized the recipe, say through a song, and he sings it and makes a beer at the same time, and nobody else knows what he's doing. But it would definitely be a great conversation.
So last question about specific beer, and then we'll have just kind of a few parting questions for you. Are there any byproducts? Are there any uses for the byproducts, or whatever's left over after a batch?
There definitely are. So, what mash produces a lot of spent grain, we call it. It's basically you extract all the sugar, some proteins, but mostly sugar that you extract, and what's left of it is a lot of fiber, a lot of protein, a lot of other things. There's still some sugar that you couldn't extract all, maybe some starches as well. So those are great animal feeds, and we donate all our spent grain to farmers. So they have every day we brew, somebody comes and pick up the spent grain for their animal feed. But there's also some more advanced uses for those. So I've heard of there's some places that turn those into energy. So for instance, they burn the spent grain and they turn it into electricity for their brewery, or they make some these can carriers that you basically you clip 4 or 6 cans to them and just you carry them around. So some creative people have made those out of spent grain, so they're biodegradable easily, and so those are the type of usage of what's left out of the brewery. But there is a lot more other than that. There's the yeast that is also could be the spent yeast could be used for animal feed, and perhaps it needs some work, but some animals eat them. We haven't done any experiments with those, but what we do is we give away our spent grain for sure.
Okay, yeah, no, that is a neat idea. Actually, thought of one more thing. Hops. What's your go-to? Speaking of IPAs and how much we love hops, what's your go-to, or what are you using right now? Because hops is very
hops are so many different ones, and there's so many of them out there that are being used that they don't have a name. They're numbered. They don't have a registered name yet. But my favorite hop is one of them. One of them is, I believe, Mosaic is one of my most loved hop. I love it so much. I use it a lot. Mosaic is one of them. Obviously there's all these other hops that are awesome. Like I love Sabro, which imparts the coconut, some tangerine. It's a newish hop. There's some other newer hops after that for sure that are great. But those are my favorite hops. Obviously, Galaxy is amazing hop.
That's a big one.
Nelson Sauvin. There's all these hops are amazing. Citra is like a lot of people are familiar with it because a lot of you can make amazing IPAs and pale ales with Citra as well. But I think for me, Mosaic is the if I had to pick one hop, that would be it.
The pinnacle, right on.
Oh, yeah.
So what? Just before we leave here, first of all, what's your main advice for anyone who would like to start a business? So not necessarily a brewery, but do what like you and your wife did, which was quit your jobs essentially and go full throttle into a business.
Yeah, so that's what we did, and it worked for us. I think the best thing to do is do your homework really well. I know it's probably said most than anything else. You do your homework. It means to really put down pen on paper and write down your numbers, write down your goals, and see if it's feasible. Like do your research. That's I think that's very important to be prepared for the worst, plan for the best things that you want to do, but be prepared for the worst, and also be conservative in your calculations. Always things happen during the setup, during the I don't know, leasehold improvement or whatever you're doing, the purchase of a product that is unforeseen and can throw a wrench in your path. But definitely be prepared for that with being conservative in your calculations, and have good consultants maybe, and if you don't know about something very well, definitely hire somebody. It's going to worth the money for sure down the road.
And what are the future plans for Bicycle Brewery?
So we've been expanding our production every year, and we're kind of running out of space in our current location. So we're probably thinking of, our next step would be a variety of things. One of them, which is a big step, would be a bigger brew house, but that
Yeah.
requires a little bit more space, or better utilization of our space. Maybe we can rent some other, I don't know, some rent a space to put some of the things. We warehouse at the brewery, warehouse it elsewhere, and to make room for the brew house. There's a lot of things going on right now. And last year, because of the COVID, we put a pause on our plans for anything. We just basically were survival mode. I was out delivering beers almost daily as well. Yeah, but this year we decided to continue our growth because we like to grow. We don't like to do it too fast. We like to grow organically. We have the capacity for it. We have the customer base for it. So we're working on that right now to just increase our production. There's a lot of it is always to optimize what we have, to make better use of the space, better use of our production process. Optimize the process, less waste in every step of the way. And then if we hit them all, and then there's no more room in our brew house, then we'll definitely go to the bigger brew house.
Oh, that's exciting. And what's other than the Ghost? What's the next beer? Is there a summer beer you can tell us about?
Well, we have a beer that's called Zenith. It's coming out in a couple of days. It's kind of like it's a hybrid of New England and West Coast. It's one of the favorites, obviously, for us and our staff. But it's coming out, and I know a lot of people are waiting for that. Then we have a bunch of other beers worked in the works. We have our jalapeno beer coming out soon. We have a beer called Astara. I just made it for the place of birth, for my father's place of birth, basically. It's called Astara in Iran, and that's a favorite beer. And around the Father's Day, we're going to release that for sure. And we have milkshake series that are very popular.
Nice.
And we try to do one every month and a half, every 2 months. The other beers, we're trying to make some lighter beers as well, because getting to the warmer months of the year, you mow your lawn, you want something lighter. I mean, I like the IPAs after that too, but some people like lighter beers, so we try to make variety.
What's
I'm
a
gonna
milkshake
have
beer? Is it a beer that's milkshake flavored, or is it a milkshake that's beer flavored?
So yeah, it's interesting question. It has lactose sugar in it, and it's a term for some people call it milkshake beer, some people call it lactose beer, but yeah, we call it milkshake too. So yeah, it has lactose. Sometimes it has pectin in it, and sometimes we don't use pectin, but some people do. And there's always fruit involved, and a lot of hops. And those,
It's all you need to know. All you need to know, Jason, is they're typically amazing, and They're a slight smoothie flavor and texture to the beer, which makes it a great summer beer.
It's a really nice series for sure. We have a couple of other New England style. We have New England style IPAs. We try to, I don't know, almost release them weekly now these days. So there's a lot of stuff. We're making a new beer, doesn't have a name yet, so we made it today. And then we're gonna have Tree Climbers coming back as a New England style beer, and so
I'll have to place an order. That's for sure. I was just curious. You mentioned your heritage. Is beer big back in Iran or not at all? Or
it's not at the time. No, before the revolution of '79, it was obviously produced and consumed as well. But after that, it's forbidden. So, but
right.
Yeah, some people still enjoy it if they can get their hands on it.
Right.
Yeah. But historically, Iran was one of the places that back in the day they had thousands of years ago they were making beer, obviously, like all the other civilizations.
So where can people find you and or craft bicycle brewery? Bicycle Craft Brewery, sorry.
Yeah, it's no problem. We're obviously we're on Industrial Avenue, 850 Industrial Avenue, Unit 12. That's the easiest way. If people want to drop in, we have a order and pickup window, so you don't even have to worry about entering the tap room or the retail space. But we set up right at the window. You can come in, choose your beer or merchandise, and order it. Obviously, online orders are pretty big these days. The majority of our sales online. And other than that, we have a couple of products: Velocity IPA and Frequency American Pale Ale that we sell in all the Ottawa LCBOs. Almost all of them. And so, and then there's also bars and restaurants, but right now they're not open, but some of them offer takeout and have our canned beer. You can purchase food and beer to go. They obviously are great places to go to, and I really encourage people to go to these restaurants and pubs and that offer takeout, because they're our hardest hit places these days for sure.
Yeah. So when you say a window, is it kind of like a Tim Hortons drive-through? You just roll on up, and I'll take some ghosts to go.
Yeah, it's not exactly a drive-through, but for sure you can park your car and get out and come to the window and order your beer and take it. Or if you don't feel comfortable getting out of your vehicle, we have been doing it since the day that COVID hit, and that is we just bring it out to your car, and there's no problem at all. We happily do that.
Like the old A&W stuff.
Yeah, exactly like that.
Yeah.
And then we obviously, the home delivery is a big portion of our sale now as well, which is we offer free home delivery for any purchase of $40 and more, beer and merchandise combination, whatever it is. We deliver it for free in Ottawa.
Right on. Well, I think Jason just came up with the name of your next GOSA, which will be the GOSA to go. If things keep going,
that's a great name. I might use it if you don't mind.
Yeah,
all yours, my friend.
If you're still doing the window stuff, who knows, right?
Exactly.
Well, Fariborz, thank you very much for your time. We really enjoyed having this chat with you, and for everybody who's listening, number one tip here, if you're ever looking to become an entrepreneur or start a business, it's crunch those numbers again and again. Make sure you're conservative about and you don't overshoot. And then know that you'll have to work a lot harder and a lot more hours than you ever thought you had to.
That's true. Well put together for sure.
Until if you open a brewery, you get to celebrate with your own stuff. So I think you done did it well.
Sounds good to me. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Will and Jason, I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you.